Hello and welcome, fellow awesomeologists, to Awesomeology. I'm Sue.
And I'm Ben, and in this episode, we're kicking off 2023 by inviting you on a brand new adventure with us. And the good news is that you don't have to leave your chair.
Unless you really want to.
Yes.
Which then you
want.
should.
Right. Then
But
get
take
up.
us with you,
Right.
is the point. You are invited. This is your special invitation to be one of our accountability partners as we chronicle our team working toward total and radical accountability.
So we'll start by explaining what we mean by all of that, and then we'll get you up to speed with our journey so far and wrap it all up by talking about what comes next.
So first things first.
Here we go.
We will give total credit. I don't know if I lean far enough away to make a woo. I'm a wooer. I don't know if you know that about me.
You're a woo girl?
I like a good woo in my life. Let's give credit, speaking of woo, to, I can't stop now, to the awesome Wisconsin Credit Union League and their leadership program, which I was lucky enough to be in. And that was in partnership with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and their continuing education program, because that program was what inspired this whole project.
Yes, indeed, it did.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear, because I know I come in with a head of steam. I don't know if you know this about me, but I get an idea and I come in with a head of steam.
Like a bull in a china shop, just coming in.
Yeah, screaming, yelling, arms flailing. Wooing, because I'm a wooer. Yeah. So this came up in one of our sessions over the last year. So there were 6 sessions in this leadership program. Came up in one of the sessions. Each session was 8 hours total over 2 days. And a lot of background to say, I remember distinctly being in those sessions and just thinking, holy cow, this is exactly what my brain needed. This is what our team needed to really go to the next level. Mm-hmm. And then I came in wild and crazy to tell you about it. And what was your first reaction to hearing about it?
Yeah,
Think hard.
Yeah, right. I mean, I do remember like so much head nodding. Like everything you were saying, I was like, yes, yes, we need that. Yeah, and while I think your experience with the League Leadership Institute certainly has played a catalyst in like, that journey for us and where we're at today. That was a turning point for our team, just you having the courage to say, hey, I learned about this thing. It's exciting to me. Let's talk about it. Does it make sense for our team, right? So I don't want to take anything away from that moment, but, before that, of course, like our team was always trying to be as accountable as we could be, trying to operate, our team in a way that, is as healthy as possible. But sometimes, to fit that into a framework or to hear from a professional, somebody with some experience about how they did it or what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And I also think sometimes hearing what works for some people is all the evidence you need to not do a thing sometimes too, you know?
Right.
So, I think it was just like acknowledgement of some really great information that you learned. And I remember just feeling like, yes, and I think we had kind of this, I don't know if I would say unspoken, because our team's rather open, I believe, with each other. But I think we just had kind of this unspoken desire amongst the team to do better, and that's not to discredit anyone's ability or, the state of our team as a whole or anything, but I think we just wanted to do better, and we didn't quite know, like, how do we get there? How do we at least take a next step? And so this was just, at the very least, some inspiration, but hopefully what we find out when we're, knee deep in this thing, we're ankle deep in it right now, maybe. We realize that it's been a lot more than inspiration. It's been structure and, systems and things that really can help take our team to the next level, like you said. So, The short answer to your question is I was just excited. I was just really excited for how, something like what we'll be talking about is an opportunity for us to, really take next steps and grow as a team, grow as individuals, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that now that that it has cooled off a little bit. We've had a little time to think about this, because I do know one of my tendencies may be like toward the charismatic preacher sort of vibe, where I can get into a zone where I think some people find me super convincing, and it's only because I'm carrying like that head of steam with me.
Sure.
And it's good to hear that you still agree with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it wasn't just like my excitement sweeping us along in there.
Well, and if I'm being honest, like I think it's like tough to not be excited about it, whether it's at the moment you presented it or even now. Like, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create an accountable team, a super accountable team that's accountable to each other, accountable to the organization, and operates in a really healthy way because of it, and builds and maintains super healthy relationships because of it. So, like, I mean, how can you not be excited about that? You know what I mean?
Right.
And yes, your charismatic presentation of ideas like this may also have contributed to it for sure. But I mean, how do you fight this? You know what I mean?
You do that too.
I know I do.
Should also
I know
point out.
I know I do.
This is, I don't know if we're telling secrets out of school. Maybe we shouldn't tell people this, but this is part of our success. It is.
For sure. No, there's no denying it. But so I agree that sometimes ideas or big initiatives like this can be presented with a bunch of energy, especially if it's like fresh off an event or a cool opportunity, learning at a conference or, at something like the League Leadership Institute. And then very quickly after you can realize, well, this isn't for us, or, isn't maybe what was delivered to us on stage or whatever, right? But, and I guess I'll just sidebar for a tiny minute. I think that's another thing that made it really easy to say, like, we got to at least try this. Because again, at the end of the day, whether we followed some of the best practices that were shared or used some of the information in the book, which we'll talk about in a second, or if we didn't do any of that, as long as we kept like the goal or the objective in mind, which was to create accountable teams, like none of it would have been a air quotes waste of time.
Right.
We would have learned some things along the way. Either our team's not cut out for this, I'm not cut out for this. This is a bunch of BS that can't actually happen, or a bunch of other conclusions that we could have came to if it really like totally failed or fell flat on its face. And that may be something to do with the creator or the author or whatever, and it may also have everything to do with us. And hopefully you learn the truth when you dive into something like this. But
and that's the point of what we're doing here-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, this is chronicling it,
right.
But that is the point of actually diving in and seeing, is this, can we function in this space? Can we do these things and make these agreements? And maybe we should talk a little bit about when we say accountability, you pointed out, like our people are accountable. We are accountable.
Right.
We don't, I would not say that we walked into this whole initiative with a terribly unaccountable team or massive lack of accountability.
Right.
But what we are talking about when we talk about accountable teams is a different view of accountability, where individuals on the team are accountable to what's happening, where they know what the team is supposed to be doing, they see the direction, and the accountability doesn't lie solely with the leaders.
Right.
So you referenced the book. We'll talk about the book because you can check out Revolutionize Teamwork Yes, Revolutionize Teamwork. Read it off your notes and read it well. By Eric Coriel. And this lays out all of the concepts behind what we're talking about. And right in the very beginning, he explains that traditional accountability in business is based on a military model, which is the generals. All of the accountability goes to the general, and it trickles down to each team under the general. And that means that when things go terribly, terribly wrong, it's all the general's fault. And when things go terribly, terribly right, the general gets all the credit.
Yeah.
And it means that the leadership is actually taking the accountability rather than giving people the credit, the ability, the freedom to be accountable for themselves and to answer to themselves and to each other and have healthy communication, do all of those things that you could be doing rather than saying, well, that's a leadership problem. And,
Sure.
Yeah.
And doing all of these things while, to keep the military analogy, achieving the mission, right?
Right.
Working towards the same goal.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so what I think for the listeners, where I think this worked well for our team, is that we have a whole group of really talented people. And the one thing that I continually saw as a gap is connecting them to mission, to helping them understand this is what we're trying to do. When we're all working at our best ability, this is what we're going to accomplish. And it's because it's for a variety of reasons, some of it being everyone has a different expertise. Everyone can see how their expertise does something.
Yeah.
But to connect that all to this is what success looks like when everyone's using their expertise and we succeed or we fail together. And we can't succeed or fail individually.
Right.
It just was a thing that I think you say that to someone, they go, oh, yeah, well, of course I understand that. But to really connect it to what is your mission and purpose for why you're here and what we're all doing, and how can we help each other achieve that, is next level thinking.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
even if you feel like you agree with that without making any changes, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Easy
Yeah.
to agree to it and say sounds good and then change nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So shout out, I made a note to make sure we shouted out the name of that book, Revolutionize Teamwork by Eric Coriel. Super short, easy read. As of today, if you want to get it on Amazon and you read it on your Kindle, it's $3.82.
Ooh, nice.
And it really sets the table for what you can be doing differently on your teams. And the two big things are, number one, understanding what your team's accountable to, and number two, being able to deal with real issues, and real issues being things that affect your team's success or failure, being able to deal with that out loud.
Right.
And, that, for me, that was the big insight, because we do spend a lot of time as leaders working around dealing with things out loud,
Yeah.
and all with good intentions.
Yeah.
Never wanting to, feeling like pointing out a gap in someone's skills is damaging.
Yeah.
Another thing, I could just go on and on and on, but another thing that he discussed when he was lecturing and is also in the book is talking about that social contract of, if you don't tell me what I'm doing wrong, I won't tell you what you're doing wrong.
Right.
We
And we can just be friends.
Yeah, we don't raise that stuff,
Yeah.
and everybody's fine.
Yeah.
But part of being accountable to each other is, in a non-judgmental way, talking about those gaps and being able to say, oh yeah, I had no idea I was supposed to be doing that. Or nope, I should be doing that thing and I am not doing it because I haven't found a way to prioritize it, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Hearing you talk definitely brings another memory to mind when you first talked about this, and just that whole topic of dealing with real issues. It was really exciting, a little scary, really exciting to think about what that might look like for our team, and also knowing full well that it might bring some really uncomfortable stuff to the surface, but with some agreements, some prep, making sure that the team knows like what the outcome is of doing this. I felt like all the confidence in the world that it would only bring good to the team eventually. And with some discomfort, through some discomfort, right? I fully anticipate to be called out on some of the BS that I get away with every day that, means we aren't working our best way, or I'm not working my best way and not contributing to the team the best way that I can, and preventing us from really great outcomes and really great relationships amongst the team and outside of our team, So, and I think that as long as you are able to go into it with an attitude like that, yeah, this is going to hurt a little bit, this is going to be a little sticky once in a while, but on the other side of that is something really, really cool. And that's for us to just be able to talk openly and, bring real issues to the forefront, deal with them, learn. And I think that's the most exciting part about it is each person on the team will get an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow as a human being, and definitely an opportunity to learn and grow as, a member of this team and as a professional, right? And like so many things in work, I think like the hidden or underlying value that doesn't get enough credit every now or almost all the time is what changes like this at work can mean for life, like home life or volunteer life or whatever, So by being able to bring real issues, to your work family, your team at work, what might that mean for home?
Yeah.
Or other groups where you're constantly pulling your hair out like, gosh, there's this thing that we all know is the real problem, but nobody's saying it, And I'm not saying that you can flick a switch and make this happen everywhere in your life, but I'm really hoping that I'll learn some things along the way that create some nice byproducts for outside of work too,
Yeah. Well, and even already, so we've done to the listeners, we've done some initial work. I think one of the, at least when I look at what this looks like as a project on our team, we have a relatively small team, 6 of us all together.
Yeah.
Even that, when we walked into it, we sort of had this confidence of, we trust each other. We have this high level of expertise, and they're high performing people, and it'll all be fine. Even that, to look at this and say, from this point on, when there's something wrong, we're going to talk about it, and it's not going to be, ooh, could you ask so-and-so why they're not doing that thing, and I don't understand why they don't do that thing, or, and then turn that into a huge amount of time, right? So
Right.
That's an exciting thing for me, and I think too, because I think it comes on the heels of this time in my life where I just, in the last, maybe it's the pandemic, I don't know what it is, the last couple of years, and it also could just be that I am finally approaching that time where I will lose all sense of decorum and just say whatever comes to my mind, which I think is the right of an older woman. But this feeling of like, why am I hiding what is the problem here? Why don't I just ask that person, hey, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah.
What is I'm not judging.
Yeah.
And we have seen over the last year or so how that turns out, because I did start doing that. Just like, explain to me what's going on. And it breaks that social contract for people, and it upsets people sometimes.
Right.
Because you're not really supposed to ask that in polite society, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the expectation in a workplace culture is you go, maybe you deal with the thing in a roundabout way with the person. If you don't get results, you maybe go up the chain of command. I don't know what that whole, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, ask nicely for the thing
Right.
as many times as you can
As
tolerate.
you can take it. Yeah. Exactly.
Because there isn't a right number.
Right.
One is the right number.
Yeah.
Then you go to their supervisor, and then the supervisor goes to them, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But on an accountable team, which we're trying to build, it gives everyone the ability, the permission, the freedom to say, hey, I don't understand why you don't do this thing. And to really genuinely do it coming from a place of help educate me.
Right.
Tell me why that's not happening.
Right.
And if the person on the other end of that question is able to take that, not as a criticism, but as an opportunity to educate someone and be honest,
Yeah.
that's when you can surface things like, yeah, no one ever told me I had to do that.
Sure.
I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
Or somewhere along the way, which is a thing I think happens on teams, somewhere along the way somebody said, yeah, we used to do that all the time. We don't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so we just changed a procedure, and no one ever talked about it.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Yeah.
So that by far is my favorite byproduct. And I've definitely had a couple, in the time we have been talking about this, I have had a couple incidences where people that report to me have come and say, well, I'm not sure why that person is doing this, or I don't know why they're not doing that. And I'd be really, really interested to find out. Mm-hmm. And it's given me an opportunity, because we've talked to the team about this stuff, to say, well, ask them.
Right. Yep.
Because if you're coming to me to have me save this information to bring it up in coaching, or whatever your intention is, that's not how we deal one-on-one with people. If you
Right.
don't know why they're doing it, ask them.
Yeah.
And if you think it's something the whole team needs to discuss, bring it up in a team meeting, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody will die.
Right. Well, at least we hope so.
Yeah, as far as we know.
Yeah. We should probably, for the benefit of our listener, also just mention, like, this is still really new for us.
Yes.
We're probably going to use like a bunch of past tense terms, like we've done this or we've been doing that. And for some things that definitely might be the case. We've done some things, we've tried some things, but it's all in progress for
Right.
us. All of it is still 100% in progress. And I don't see it ending, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know. And that's something that's interesting. We have talked a little bit about, like, how do we know that this is working? And, some internal feedback, some external feedback that I think we'll rely on to know, like, okay, is this helping? Are we actually more accountable? And we'll do some of that along the way. But other than that, like, there's at least nothing that we've talked about to this point that'll give us a clear indication that we're done.
Right.
And I don't think we will be.
And we'll continue to grow.
Yeah.
And the people that join our team will be coming from a place where it's really likely that they don't have these same habits.
Right.
So we'll have an opportunity to continually work through this together and probably learn new things. And,
Yeah.
because I do think it must be highly individualized, like your tolerance for how you can handle things, the way that you take in the feedback or express the feedback has to be highly individualized.
Right.
And we may all be comfortable right now with it. But if we brought someone brand new onto the team when we were all comfortable just speaking our mind,
Right. Yeah.
that would be a real culture shock.
Yeah. And again, for the sake of transparency and honesty and where we're at, we're not all comfortable with it right now.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
we're getting there. We've been talking a lot about it. We've been, this is something that we're definitely doing. But that doesn't mean that we just say, okay, we're doing this thing, so now we're all comfortable with it. That comfort will grow over time, right? But great point. I mean, that's, if anything, just the simple fact that our team will grow over time. Like, we will never be done simply because of that, because we're going to be having people coming in from different teams, different organizations, whatever it might be. So, yeah.
So we are 25 minutes in. Probably now is a perfectly fine time to tell people why we're podcasting about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, and I'll just kick it off by saying, if I can just focus on all the things that are exciting about this to me. I think like reason number one, or goodness gracious, it's up towards the top, is the fact that now we've invited an audience into this thing with us to be accountability partners with us, right? We're going to be sharing where we're at, what we've done, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, and also be super respectful of everyone involved in the process. And that means that we got to bring it every month,
Right.
and we have to share something, and for a certain amount of time saying, yep, that's the thing we said we were going to do and we didn't do it. That'll work for a little while. And then we'll get really sick of saying that, and we'll have to be accountable to ourselves and accountable to what we've promised our listeners and our team.
Right.
And, so I'm really excited just about like the little extra skin in the game, a lot of extra skin in the game that it brings to us, some additional motivation for us to be real.
Right.
And do this thing that we said we were going to do, And of course, hopefully the listeners wind up benefiting,
Right.
learn some things, maybe get connected to some people, some resources, whatever it might be. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Especially that one of the things I'm excited about thinking about this, taking everyone along with us on the podcast journey, is the idea that so often I think in the marketplace, and I'm sure this is common in any industry, the people you hear from wait until they're experts at something or think they're experts at something, and then they tell you what they have already learned.
sure.
Which it's useful
Yeah.
to know someone's right. But I do think it paints this picture that it's easy to get to right. It's easy to know that you're right, and it's not.
Yeah.
And so being able to bring people with us to say, we think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
We're excited how this could work for our team. But we don't know how we're going to do it. We have ideas how we're going to do it. We have things that we want to try. But we can't tell you today that it's right. And we could not give you a prediction of when. I think that really when we talked about doing this podcast, that was probably one of the things that kept coming back to me. Like, you'll never find a time when you're done where you can say, we succeeded to share this.
Right.
So why not start now?
Yeah.
And be totally transparent, which is a thing I think you and I try to do.
Yeah.
And just let people judge as they judge.
Yeah.
Hopefully positively.
Right.
I am asking very specifically for people to be positive.
Yeah.
Because we're doing our best, y'all.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you're talking, it's interesting, especially at the top of the podcast, how we talked a bit about how our confident or charismatic presentation of things might gain influence and stuff. I think you and I also both are balanced out by our level of transparency with things, like as much as we might be really confident in what we're sharing, presenting, showing, we also are really confident to say, and we don't know the answer to that, or we don't know how this is going to go. So I think that maybe balances us out a little bit so people don't perceive us as totally full of crap.
Just partially.
Just partially.
Yeah.
But so I think that's something that we have going for us. And again, I hope to the benefit of the listeners, it feels real and authentic the whole time. We're not just saying like, here's this really cool thing that we're doing and our team's now amazing and there's no pain along the way. We're going to share the pain, and we're going to very happily and charismatically present everything that's going well and that we want to recommend or, have people share or try along with us, because that'd be cool to hear about too, is if anyone's been hearing things and saying like, oh shoot, I should try that or some version of that, or even one tiny aspect of something we might share, right? So
yeah, I think if we had a emblem, a leadership emblem that signified us, the words in Latin would be, it's worth a try.
Yeah. Right. Right. We'll Google Translate that, and
Yeah.
we'll have that.
Make that.
Yeah, we'll have that updated. Our
It will
cover
look
art
impressive.
Yeah. Right. Awesome. So we should probably talk a little bit about what we've done so far.
Let's
what's
talk
going
about
on.
what we've done so far.
So I am very happy to take that transition and open it up by talking about our accountability statement, because I'm going to ask you
You're going to ask me what it is?
what it is. And speaking of transparency,
You're not my friend anymore.
I'm doing
I'll
this
tell you
because
transparently.
I can't say it off the top of my head right now, and I don't have it in my notes. So,
And I was going to copy and paste it into the notes because it is, it's worth it. I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
I'm stalling.
Okay.
Can you see me stall
You're doing
over here?
great. You're
Thanks.
doing great.
So why don't we could explain a little bit about what an accountability statement is and start there.
Yeah. So, like a mission statement, maybe not the same thing, but something that, we can refer back to that is constantly giving us that energy and promise for why we're even doing this thing, right? And I remember our accountability statement being something that we spent a good amount of time on. Like, the words were important because if there was any lack of reality in them or genuineness in them, like this was just not going to happen. Like
Right.
if we couldn't even come up with a statement of like what we're trying to do, what we're trying to create, we should probably just stop right now. Right. So yeah, that was a cool exercise. That didn't take a ton of time, but when we got to it, it felt really good.
Right. And the idea behind the accountability statement, which I can now say confidently because I found it and I can read it out loud,
Nice.
is that teams need to unite under a common purpose. They need to know what it is they are accountable to. And if you can clarify what your team is meant to be accountable to, it gets rid of some of the slog, right? Mm-hmm. It separates the wheat from the chaff. and it cleans things up. I think what you see on teams is you get divided accountability because people from outside the team and even sometimes inside the team are working at cross purposes, not in
Right.
in a deliberately negative way.
Right.
But if we can all unite under what we are accountable to, it just helps the team.
Yeah.
And our accountability statement is, as a marketing team, we're accountable for being the chief apostles, lead caretakers, and vocal advocates for all of the brands we serve.
Nice.
What does that mean,
Mic drop.
Ben?
Well, I mean, I think it's specific enough in that, we have an interesting model in that we're, working with Simplicity Credit Union, and Simplicity started Exclamation Services, and we have all these other clients to serve. And so I think that, that was something that I was really happy with how it came together, in that like it's meaningful and clear for whatever work we're doing, whether it's, for our parent organization or for one of our clients. So, and the words, like being apostles and advocates, right? Like there's a bit of extra meaning there than saying we're, even just like being black and white about it and saying we're accountable to or accountable for, right? Like by using the word apostle instead of, it has a bit of extra
Right.
to it, and saying that we're going to be vocal advocates, that means like, yeah, we're going to advocate for the brand, and that might mean we need to speak up every now and then. So just the intention behind the words and the whole thing, I think, just came out really, really well. So
Yeah, we spent quite a lot of time discussing that word apostle as being someone who shares good news.
right.
And I think that was a word I remember us being excited to add in here because it's outside of what we're used to in the business world.
Yeah.
But it's a super meaningful word. And like you said, the lead caretakers for the brand. In
Right.
other words, assuming that leadership role
Right.
to look at what the different brands that we're working with, how they could present themselves. What
Yeah.
is the best way to do it?
Yeah.
And then being vocal advocates. Yeah, exactly what you said. Ditto. Just ditto.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think just getting past that, like taking that step for the team to all like help create that and understand why we use the words that we use, like that felt like real progress for our team. You know, what is it, lead caretaker, right? So I mean, like using the word lead, I mean, this may not apply to every client that we have because of the size of our relationship or, you know, the role that we play in serving them. But certainly within Simplicity and stuff, to say that we're the lead caretaker, I mean, when it comes to the brand, like the buck stops with us. Like we are totally accountable for the caretaking of the brand. Does everybody in the organization play a role in that? Yes. Are there certain departments and teams that might influence that more or less? 100%. But at the end of the day, we're the lead caretaker of it. And just to say that and
Right.
to show that and see that, you know, that's an important step when it comes to accountability. So
Right. Well, and
it's a good
even
exercise.
if you apply it to, you know, a client where we maybe have a pretty limited relationship with them, to be able to make that promise to a client and say, like, your brand, we're going to take care of that as if that's our brand.
Right.
It matters to us.
Yeah.
And to be, I think it gives, you know, in a way, a gentle permission for us to be good consultants and be able to maybe say some of the hard things that you might have to say to someone and say, ooh,
Yeah.
don't do that with your logo,
Yeah.
or, you
Or
know,
you
whatever
gotta-
those things are.
Yeah.
And to take other people's brands really seriously
Yeah.
in the super fun way that we do it.
Right. Yeah.
So another thing we did, and we talked about this a little bit on the podcast last season,
Yeah.
which is also last year,
Yeah.
which is just a couple months
Technically
ago,
also, yeah.
was our decision matrix.
Right.
And that has been quite an undertaking.
Yeah, definitely. And also something that will grow
Right.
as we learn more and continue to clarify. But yeah, it was a big chunk of time during our annual planning, Plantopia. If you don't know what Plantopia is, you can listen to that previous episode that Sue mentioned. But again, just another really valuable chunk of time that the end result is a physical, well, I guess a digital thing.
We
You
can
know,
print it.
We
then
can
it'd
print
be
it. It'd be
physical.
physical. That, you know, clarifies whose decision is this, who owns it, at what level, and, you know, just helps get some real things out on the table to say, hey, like, you've got this, you know. And what I love about it is how it helps push decisions down to people that, and when I say down, I'm talking hierarchy. I think we run a pretty flat team. You know, we really try to push ownership and accountability to every member of the team when it's right. And the decision matrix helps prove or show who can make those decisions, that they have every right they need to make that decision. And, or if there's somebody that, you know, someone else that is that the owner of that decision or that final decision maker, they know it, you know, and it's clear.
Yeah. It was, for me, it was a really good exercise to, a little bit of letting go.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated when we were having some of those discussions. And you were very subtle about it, but all of the times you're like, really? Really? You think you need to? No, Ben, I don't need to. Want to,
Yeah.
but don't need to make that decision. So that, for me, that felt empowering. It also felt really empowering being the person who reports to you to be able to say, yeah, Ben, you don't need to have anything to do with that. Why
Right.
don't you give that up?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and you know, I think that this exercise is just one example of ways where like real issues or real information can get out to the whole team. You know, me having the opportunity to say, really, like, is that a decision you need to make, or can that live with someone else? You know, without creating these moments for us to say that and do that, it might go unsaid, and then confusion lives on, right? Like a couple people think they can make the decision, or probably the worst version of that is a couple people think that they don't make the decision, and then nothing gets done and nothing
Right.
moves forward, right? So, so yeah, just the ability to do that, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it, and doing it virtually via Zoom or Teams or something like that probably works too. But us all being in the same room, seeing each other's faces when someone would say, yeah, that's a decision I'd like to make, or I don't need to make that decision. You get instant feedback, right?
Right.
By looks on people's faces, or, in the example you gave me, the opportunity to just say, really? And at the end of the day, like I might be wrong in questioning it. We might wind up getting to the original proposal of you keeping a decision or getting rid of
Right.
one. But just to be able to say it, I thought was really valuable.
Yeah. Well, and I think it will open up opportunities to address gaps,
Yeah.
because we spread some things out. We said, we gave full permission to not tell us things, I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah.
And if there is a problem, we're going to learn that.
Right.
If they weren't prepared, or if, I think sometimes what happens on teams is you have, I've been on teams like this anyway, where you think you have all of the information you need. You should be the one making the decision. You get frustrated, you have to run it past someone.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes that you have that responsibility, you choke
Sure.
because you don't actually know. Like suddenly you're questioning yourself.
Yeah.
And the way, really, honestly, the only way, especially with the work that we do, the only way you know the answer of whether or not you can do something is to try it
Right.
and see what happens.
Right. Yeah.
And there were things that people just didn't get to try,
Yeah.
just didn't get to do. And I think we felt, we were coming from a good place.
Yeah.
To not, again, to keep the accountability on the leadership.
Yeah. Let me bear this burden for you.
Right, right. The buck stops with me.
Yeah.
I'm going to protect you from all of this.
Yeah.
Well, you don't learn if you're being protected from, trying new things and making mistakes and
Yeah.
succeeding.
Yeah. Right. Or protected from something you're fully capable of doing. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
Yep.
should share probably with this an example decision matrix.
Yeah. I think
That
that'd
would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
I don't want to try and describe every column. I think it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say the one thing that I wanted to mention, just in case it's getting confusing for people, and I don't know, this might just add confusion, but there's also, some function within the decision matrix that clarifies this is your decision to make, but I just need to be kept in the loop. So you do still, you maintain the information level that you need to feel comfortable as a
Right.
leader, or as somebody that at the end of the day really is accountable for the things that your team is outputting or whatever. You might be giving full permission to someone else to make decisions to help do what you're accountable for or accountable to, but you can do that. You can do that confidently. Give them that ability to make that decision and still get the information that you need, be kept in the loop on the things that you need to be kept in the loop on. And for the sake of time and your mental health and your ability to work efficiently, not hear about the stuff that you don't need to know about. You just
Right.
don't. And I think that's tough for any leader who's accountable for things, especially if you're, reporting to anyone else. Like, you want to know everything. You want to
Yeah.
know what you need to know so you can sound smart in front of people and stuff. But also, you don't need to. You don't
Right.
need to for everything. It's just not
Right.
possible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The ability to let go is one of the most valuable
Right.
outcomes of that
And-
exercise.
As long as we're being fully transparent, there was some discussion with the whole team about, there are things that we are willing to let go, but we're still on the team. So if we have an opinion on it,
Right.
I think you and I, not you and I have to regulate carefully, those things that I'm willing to let go of, to not say, oh, I know I said I let go, but I have an opinion, and
Right.
not, play that card too much.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, we're still all working toward the same thing. So we reserve the right to at least have an opinion on it.
Definitely.
And if the idea of completely surrendering gives anyone heartburn, we still carry veto power.
Yeah.
It's about regulating when you use that veto power.
Right.
And not overusing it to be like, I didn't like where that square was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and early on, I think I've experienced, and I can imagine it happening regularly, where this opportunity to share feedback or an opinion or veto, whatever, is really nicely sat alongside an education opportunity or a training opportunity or something, right? So in the future, the more and more that we get through that stuff, like now we're truly just giving an opinion. We know, like, hey, I already told you how to do that thing. I showed you how I did it. Here's a resource for another way you could do it if you want to learn more, whatever. So they've got that. They've got all the stuff out of your brain that might help them do what they do in the way that you like it or prefer it or whatever. And then in the future, you're just straight up sharing an opinion, which
Right.
yeah, I mean, as a team, we should be able to do, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. So that's
Moving
decision
on.
matrix. We'll share that. And then just the last thing and not to say that we, in full transparency, have struggled a little bit moving forward and thinking next steps, but I really tried to pad these bullet points. And then just talking about encouraging dealing with real issues together, which is a thing I already brought up.
yeah,
Starting to have those conversations. The one thing we haven't done is, and I don't know if it's appropriate to do, is say, okay, as of January 1, we only deal with real issues, right?
Yeah,
We
right.
haven't done that. We haven't pulled off that Band-Aid.
yeah,
And this is one of those things where I think our accommodating styles could be a little bit to our detriment, could keep us
Definitely.
from really kicking that in the butt.
definitely, yeah, yeah. I think we likely could see some real progress on things quicker if we made a decision like that, or just blanket statement like this is what we will be doing now and henceforth. But
Please use the word henceforth.
right, yeah, I'm
from
planning
now
on it. Yeah, it's in my script. But like a lot of things that we implement as a team, like I think we try things, we experiment a little bit, and we get to the point where it's like, okay, we need to just say that thing now and just be real. Or we get to the point where we step back and analyze and we're like, oh, like that's the thing that we're doing now. We talked about getting there and we've been making small little changes to get there, but now we're just straight up doing it. So I don't know which one it'll wind up being for us. We'll either have to pull the Band-Aid off eventually or we'll realize, hey, this is going well and let's keep doing it. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of not knowing how it's going to go, let's talk about what's next.
yeah, right.
As we wrap up, I think for me, thinking about, I had a lot of stress a lot of anxiety coming into doing this recording because I love to know what's next. I love to have a plan. And sometimes we let things get sort of so far away from us
Yeah.
that I have to recenter and
Right.
see, okay, what did we do? What have we done? What did we talk about being our next steps?
Yeah.
And it's just, we've talked about definitely on the podcast before, just the grind, man.
Yep.
Just the taskiness of things.
Yep.
So to me, that's where we're at. We have to figure out, we have to recenter and say, this is the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. As uneasy as I felt about coming into this first recording of this version of the podcast, like already before we've even hit stop on the recording, I'm so happy that we've done it because, this has been an opportunity for you and I to recenter. I know that already I'm thinking well, we need to go back and we need to reshare the accountability statement with the team. Unless I'm the only person on the team I know I'm not the only person because you had to look it up too. But the fact that I couldn't at least say it within a certain amount of
Right.
accuracy, is proof that hey, you got to constantly bring this stuff back. Otherwise, you can get off track pretty easily. So yeah, recentering and then, of course, continuing to share the story, with the podcast audience is definitely something that's next. So we've we've decided that we're going to do these episodes throughout the year. So unless something,
look out.
yeah, unless something has changed where by 3/4 of the way through the year, we're feeling so awesome about how it's going. We're like, yeah, we're feeling good, everybody. No more of that stuff.
Then we'll still do it, but we'll make people pay for it.
Right.
Because we'll be so good at it.
Because we're so good at it. Yeah. But so yeah, I anticipate people will be on the journey with us for the year, and then along the way, who knows, but I'm excited for what I know will be next steps of us sharing some cool experiences of putting real issues out to the team, working through them, and like real change happening, real growth happening,
Yeah. Let me ask you this before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Do you think the rest of the team, because we introduced it to them, we told them, the purpose behind it, we shared that accountability statement, we've done some things where we've, sort of called back to it. Where do you think they're at right now? Do you think they think we are going to keep doing this? Or do you think the team has sort of like lulled themselves into like, okay, we don't have to change anything because this has kind of, like they did the couple of things. They got all excited about their couple little things. And now they shut up. So if I don't bring it up.
So great question. So great that I made a note of where's the team at. And I think that we need to give an update in the next episode. Because I don't know where they're at. I imagine that they're in that rosy place of, well, maybe not rosy. They're in that place where they're like, yeah, this sounds good. Like, of course it'd be good for our team. And I'm a little scared,
Right.
But I can't say that we've done anything or that I'm seeing anything from the team that they're like nose deep engaged with it either. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's something that they've talked about and they're waiting for what's next.
Yeah. And do you think that maybe is an area for growth? Because we've brought it up.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. And I don't want to say that the onus should then be on the other people to keep it going. Right. But, that really is this old-fashioned idea of, well, they said they were going to do these things, and I don't know what was going to happen with that thing, but nobody said anything about it, so.
Yeah. Yeah, two-way street, right? Like, of course we need to keep it top of mind. We need to maybe be the drivers or whatever, but they got to be on the ride with us. And I think, for really like creating accountability, like you got to be engaged with it and do some things proactively without the prompt or the nudge of the people you report to. So we'll see. We'll see what we might be able to do to support them in that, and not just say like, you must report back on how you're engaging with, that's definitely not our style or something we'd expect, but we do expect people to like interact and engage and grow and do as much of that independently as they can and have the brain space and the capacity for, and again, with support too, because what you said is also totally accurate. We're not going to say like, here's the thing we're doing, guys, and then run away and wait to see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So next steps for next time.
Yeah.
So we are very excited to have you on this new journey with us. We're going to publish these accountability updates. And I don't, as of recording right now, I don't know how to name them.
Yeah.
These are going to be in our regular podcast feed, so you'll find them. We're going to publish them on the second Wednesday of every month, and then you'll find our regular episodes, those long, rambling, as if this wasn't long and rambling, episodes on the fourth Wednesday every month.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. We're excited to share with you all. And for now, thanks for tuning in. Be awesome, and we'll see you next time.
The Awesomology Podcast is a production of Exclamation Services. Thanks to Nick Mulliver for sound production and Kylie Ganther for our cover artwork.
Executive producers are me, Ben Bauer, and my friend Suzanne Campbell.